John Lusk here of Lusk Archery Adventures. Going to be doing a bunch more broadhead testing today that I'm excited about. But before I begin, I just want to give a shameless plug here. Please check out all my other videos here on my channel, Lusk Archery Adventures. Please subscribe. I've got over 50 videos, about 30 bow hunts from 3 different nations, 15 different species, and then a bunch of gear reviews and a bunch of broadhead tests. Just go through it. I think you'll really like it. Now let's get on to the testing heads. And today I'm going to be testing what could be the world's toughest broadhead. That's a pretty bold claim, but there's some reasons that I think it even before I've shot it. This is the Bishop Holy Trinity 200 grain, and the reason I think it could be the world's toughest broadhead is several fold. There's 4 basic ways you can determine how strong a broadhead is before you even shoot it into anything. And those are just real quickly, first the quality of the steel itself. What kind of steel is it? Just to say something's all steel, it's nice, but there's such a variety, such a wide range of different types of steel. So the quality of the steel itself. Second, the Rockwell hardness. How is it hardened? And to what degree is it hardened? Some heads, to sell better, they tout that they've been hardened to, X degree of Rockwell hardness. But if it's the wrong kind of steel to handle that hardness, it's just going to fracture and even edge chatter and shatter upon impact, which a lot of heads do. So the hardness is the second one. And then the third is the composition of the steel. In other words, like how it's put together. Just to say something's all steel, there could be many different ways. It could be multiple pieces that are welded together. You see a lot of heads that do that. It could be multiple pieces that are held together by a set screw or two. A lot of heads go that route. It could be a single piece head that's metal injection molded, MIM construction there. Or it could be a single piece that's CNC machined, which is by far the toughest. It's machined out of a single chunk of this bar steel. And then the fourth is the geometric design. How stout the head is, how thick the blades are, how supported the tip is, all make a difference in its resistance to tip curl upon impact with a hard medium, and its overall strength, the blade strength, and so forth. So with this head in specific, the reason I say it could be the world's toughest broadhead is, first they use this proprietary S7 tool steel. S7 tool steel is one of the toughest steels there is. It's incredibly tough, and this one particularly, the tool steel that Bishop uses, has a Charpy resistance to impact. Charpy V-notch testing is a way to resist the impact of something to that steel, and this has a resistance to impact of in the 90s. It's about 4 times more resistant to impact than stainless steel is, to put it in perspective, even over 4 times. And then, it's S7 tool steel and top tier S7 tool steel. And then it's brought to a Rockwell hardness of 58, which is pretty amazing, and they can do that because of the type of steel that it is. And then it's CNC machined, which is by far the strongest way a head can be designed. It's very expensive to do that, especially out of that quality of S7 tool steel. These heads are really expensive, but it's really tough. And then the fourth is the geometric design. And with this 200 grain, first of all, with the Bishop Holy Trinity, they have a really short design, shorter than others on the market like VPA. VPA are great heads, but this is just a shorter design. It's stouter, and so it's going to fly a little bit better than most other heads like that because it has less surface area, and it's going to hold up better to impact because of its stouter design. But then the blades on this specifically are 0.070 inches thick, which is a really thick blade. Let me kind of zoom on in there. It's a super thick blade, one of the thickest on the market. And then you see that in the 200, unlike the 125s, they have this extra supporting thing right here, and that's, if you look closely, that's like a blade in and of itself. It's like a triangular wedge type blade that is really thick. If you look at it from this side, I'm going to make you dizzy there, but you look at it from this side, you can see a little bit about how thick it is. Let me try to, yeah, you can see how thick it is there on that end. And if you look at it this way, you can see it from the front side. It's like a long wedge, about almost the length of the whole head, and it's really sharp. Like, for its thickness, it's as sharp as it can get. I mean, it's brought to an edge. That's going to cut. That's going to cut through bone really well if something doesn't get cut by the primary leading blades. So it's also going to cut up more tissue. So It's almost like a 6-blade. I know it's not a 6-blade, but it's almost like a 6-blade because it has these extra pieces in here, and it's going to make it more resistant to coming out of an animal as well. So this does, and those things are really just to support the head more. So with this, with everything about this, the type of steel, the hardness, the CNC machining, and the geometric design, this has the potential to be the world's toughest broadhead. Really, I could say that it is. I do a lot of research on broadheads. I don't know anything that's going to come even close to it, except Bishop's 41L40, their Bridgeport head, that's the same. It's just a little bit lesser tier type of steel, tool steel, but still way above most other tool steels, most other heads on the market, way above that. So anyway, I believe this is going to be the world's toughest head, but I'm just going to poke it through a bunch of things, shoot it into some stuff, do some destruction testing, and see how well this edge holds up, and see how well that the tip holds up and the overall design holds up. And I will say that Bishop, in their recent releases of their heads, man, they've made these really sharp. I mean, this is like straight out of the package, and it is sticky sharp, which for a .070 inch thick blade, it's as sharp as it can get. And also with their heads, just like VBAs, you can sharpen them just by laying them flat on a file or a diamond sharpener or something like that, and just sharpen them, which is really nice. You don't have to sharpen every blade individually, and you don't have to worry about the angle. You just lay it flat, and it sharpens 2 at a time. So you just rotate it. As long as you do it evenly, it's super easy to sharpen. Tough steel, but an easy process of sharpening. So again, let's test this out and see how it does against some really tough stuff. Now I'm going to shoot this head straight into the 16 gauge steel plate. 16 gauge is pretty thick, and it's much thicker than a barrel, a steel barrel, a steel drum. And so I'm going to shoot it straight into that and just see how the tip holds up and see how the blades hold up if it penetrates through. So let's zoom on in here. Okay, this is pretty cool. So in my previous test, I used 22 gauge steel. I think it was a steel plate. And so I found some 16 gauge. And man, that made a chunk. It took a chunk out of it. You can see if I zoom it in there, you can see that made a pretty nice hole. Try to bring it in here. It looks, it's in incredible shape. I mean, virtually unscathed. The blades went in about halfway. I can see a little bit, it's hard to line it up here. I can see a little bit of marking halfway down the blade where it cut through that steel. But as you can see, the tip and the edges themselves are in incredible shape. That was cool. Okay, the next test of the Bishop 200 grain Holy Trinity is going to be at this porcelain tile. And so I've got 5 tiles stacked up there, and they're taped together, so they're kind of like one big chunk of porcelain tile. I'm not sure what to expect here, but I've heard it's a good way to test heads. It's a really hard impact, so let's see what happens. Dang, that was cool. I should have used a lot more tile. That was really cool, even with the 585 grain arrow and tip combination. But it deflected off. I'm sure it would have gone through more, but it deflected off into the Reinhardt, and it buried into the Reinhardt beyond the head. Okay, pulling out the head here. That was definitely a challenging test. I didn't think it'd be that challenging. I think because the angle, it didn't, I mean, obviously it hit it straight on, but then it must have just moved to the side. That tip, I don't know if you can see it here, tip got a little bit stunted there, blunted to the side a little bit on that. The blades a little, oh, I keep drifting off camera, sorry. The tip got a little bit stunted there, and you can see the blades, they're still in good shape, but they, you can see they're kind of scraped up. That one has a little bit of nicks on it, but still in good shape. Impressive. Next test with the Bishop 200 grain Holy Trinity is going to be at this cinder block. And the head is in really the same condition it was after going through the tiles. That tip is a little bit less sharp than it was at the beginning, as are the blades, but structurally it's in great shape, and I'll put a file to it and it'll be right back to normal. So this head is incredibly tough. All the tests I've done with the Bishop heads have been phenomenal. I mean, they're just in a class by themselves in terms of toughness and durability. And this one, I would say, is their toughest one because of its extra beefiness and the way they've added those extra ridges to strengthen it. It's 0.070 inches thick, but all of the Bishop Holy Trinities are extremely strong. I typically shoot the 125 grain, but this one's going to get a little more blood. And even though it's 1 1/8 inch cutting diameter with those extra 3 big wedge blades, that's going to do some serious damage, and it's going to hold up to anything the animal world throws its way.